Next question. Oh, it's too many hands.
So along the lines of globalization, as we're just talking about, clearly the issues that we're dealing with National Wildlife Refuges aren't really national issues; they're international ones. Considering the integration of like migration pathways and how, if you talk about the atmosphere, it's affecting the entire world. So it seems like over the last decade or two, we've had meetings like the ones in Rio, the Kyoto Protocols, the meeting in Copenhagen, back in the summer of '09, and out of all these meetings, they just seem to be more like political stunts, and nothing actually gets done because it's so difficult to put pressure on nations to work cooperatively. So I guess in your professional opinion, do any of you have any methods that you've seen effectively used or that you would advocate for to deal with this so that we can work on this preservation and conservation issue on an international level?
Fabulous question. I have had the privilege and hardship of having to write about treaty negotiations over global warming since before there was a treaty, since before 1992. And I kind of watched that whole process evolve and de-evolve. And I guess my impressions are that if you wait for some bunch of guys in gray suits at the UN to solve this problem for the world, you'll be waiting a very long time. That as Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of Britain, said to me at a press conference, said in 2005, no country is going to harm its economy for the sake of solving global warming. And that's been a hard reality for a long time that was never really expressed as bluntly as he did at that time. And what that says to me is, again, there was this old idea you could treat carbon dioxide, the main greenhouse gas, like you could a traditional pollutant. You regulate it, you have a price on it perhaps, and then everyone would have to adapt to that and shift to new kinds of fuels. That system will not work for this particular gas because it comes from every single thing that we do. And the main source of growth is China and India for the next number of decades. 98% of the growth in emissions of greenhouse gases is coming in developing countries, not here. 98% of the growth. We're actually, our emissions of CO2 have gone down a little bit because of the recession. So it's, so what that says to me is, and that says two quick things. One is, don't expect developing countries to sacrifice their economies for the sake of our atmosphere and climate. They expect us to lead the way in innovation on energy technology and those kinds of things. And also to help them develop the capacity to limit impacts from climate extremes. So the ball is in our court, but it won't be the kind of thing there will be a grand treaty signed. And that means that educational institutions, that sources of innovation, that sharing ideas through the social networks and the internet related to energy use, related to efficiency, related to how we learn about science, related to appreciating these incredible images, so that more people have that sense of the value of this place called the Anwar that no one knows beyond an acronym. That's where the potential lies in the long haul, I think, personally.
Yeah, just quickly, and although I actually work for the government, I work for the local government, and government has its role. It's not the only role, and I think whether you're whatever issue you're talking about, the non-government agencies, what we call the NGOs, the non-profits, do an unbelievable work. Whether it be in humanitarian issues, something like Doctors Without Borders, the work they do. The reason they're doing it because it doesn't get done by the governments. We need the NGOs to do it, and we see that on all the levels. So all the the environmental organizations that are working on the global warming issue, all the environmental organizations. For example, everybody here probably knows about Audubon, but most people probably don't know about Bird International, which is really the global organization that's looking at that and is working on a whole host of issues that have to do with these migration patterns, the issues that, so it's about habitat destruction, it's also about global warming. They're working on all of those types of issues. They're the folks who are working on, for example, making sure we have sustainable coffee, which you've probably heard about, making sure that we're not impacting the rainforest and whatever. So really looking at those the nonprofits, they do an incredible amount of work.
I'd just like to quickly reinforce what Andrew said and Denise, in that I wanted to say, please don't lose heart over the established ways that our society makes decisions. There are times when, fairly recently, where we've seen enormous change in social economic systems happen almost overnight. In the mid-1980s, most citizens in this country would never have believed that the Soviet Union was going to collapse in a couple more years, but it did. And many government leaders were caught off guard when people in Tunisia started the revolt that has spread through the Arab world, but it did. And some of the new technologies that we hear about in the news for social networking hold great promise for grassroots people to share their ideas and organize. And so there is hope, and please keep that in the back of your mind as you face the problems that are ahead of us.
Thank you again for your responses. Can we get another question from this side of the room? I feel. Well, thank you, Sienna.
This may seem like a simple question, but it might be kind of hard to wrap your head around the answer. What would you recommend to us as what to do as students, I guess, on a local basis?
I got somebody.
Well, I just joined academia this year. After 25 years as a journalist, I kind of looked back and said, if I spend the next 25 years just writing articles about stuff that's happening, will I feel satisfied with that being a full career? And the answer was no, especially learning what I've learned about what changes people. So I came to Pace University, not just to work with students there, it's right up the road here, but also to build a set of tools online that can allow students at different universities to co-learn. Right now, I'm trying to work this out. Some of my students at Pace, they just went to Belize on their spring break. They're a documentary class. They can make a film on anything. Last year, they made a film on a day in the life of the American ambassador to the Netherlands, which is kind of cool. This year, they're making a film on sustainable shrimp farming. They went to Belize. They could normally just be going down there and just hanging out on the beach, but they spent every day, dawn to dusk, shooting film at these shrimp aquaculture places that are generating the seafood that we don't think about very much, and learning about how to do it with less impact. Their film that they're making, now there's some students at the University of Colorado, because we have to interview a guy in Colorado, but we're not going to all fly to Colorado to do that. They're going to do that part of the documentary in Colorado. And you could do that with a college in Ghana. You guys in high school could do this right now with a high school in another part of the world. You can co-create a video. So there's huge potential that we've just started experimenting with in academia at your level and beyond to co-learn about, again, all these things that we're talking about. What is the value of a refuge? How do you define it? Right now, a big chunk of the world, there's a map that came out recently, I haven't had time to blog on it, about parks that are being unmade. One of the great wonders of our history and Teddy Roosevelt's legacy is that it's really hard to unmake a park here, national park. But that's not true in other countries. And so finding ways to get out the message from other countries, and again, through Twitter, through Facebook, through so many means, you can connect right now. I was in Belize, and there were these kids in an internet cafe who are 12 on Facebook. They're all out there, so find them and learn about Belize. Learn about any part of the world right now. You can do that now. So it's all in your hands. And teachers will still have a role, but you'll be co-learning. They'll be co-learning with you very much henceforth, because everything's changing so much. There's so many opportunities.
Just let me add one thought, and that has to do with it doesn't matter what you want to do as you get older or what your skills are, because in this business of environmental protection, working with National Wildlife Refuges, we need all the skills, whether you're a writer, whether you're a scientist, because a lot of people think about this as only about math and science. This is about everybody on every level, whether you're the great communicator, which is really going to help us a lot, but we need so many different skills to get our message out, because we need the data to get out. We can't just make up data. We need the scientists doing the research. We need the journalist. We need the people who are really good at video production. we need all of your skills, because sometimes people don't understand, and particularly the youth and the enthusiasm, because there's a whole lot of us who've been in the environmental movement for a long time, and we now need some help. We were talking about the 60s and whatever, and we need the next generation to get engaged. So I guess the biggest thing is, don't just go back and say, oh, that was nice. You need to become engaged, and there's so many ways to do that, whether you want to do it locally or on a more global level. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's so many organizations that you can be involved in, whether it be here at the Bruce or whatever. Oh, yeah.
I'll confirm that by adding that look at what happened here. Look how did this panel come to be? All I did was shoot photographs, okay? And Laurie, almost 2 years ago, approached the Bruce with an invitation to exhibit our show. And it's amazing. Andrew's here.
And when you send me an
Sarah's
email?
here.
Who sent me that email?
Andrew Gillis.
Yep. It's just amazing. And I said, okay, I'll come.
So this effort, as Denise is saying, takes a lot of different skills. And so my position is that whatever you're passionate about doing, follow that, because that will then plug in where it's appropriate and needed.
Thank you very much for those responses.